Good morning, everybody. Another Honest RC review video. Here we go. Two-wheel drive Traxxas Rustler, electric. Let's get into it. So, here we have, I have two of these trucks right now. I have had about a dozen of these over the years, and it's always been a fun truck to have around, but never one that I've ever really kept around, just because I've always traded them off for other things. Remington says hi. Come on, get out of my way, pain in the butt. So, these trucks have always been fun to have because they're easy to work on. Parts are everywhere for these things, and they're just good trucks to just thrash around the skate park. Now, this one is mine. It is brushless. I picked it up as a roller, except it didn't have any rear tires, so I threw stock Stampede rear tires on it. As you can see, it's got RPM rear arms, front arms, aluminum shocks up front. It's got aluminum caster blocks and steering knuckles, and it's got, the later version, all adjustable linkage. And I printed a stock front bumper out of TPU, so it's rubber, and it has these little spots, little light buckets for lights. Now, I'm running in mine, again, I got it as a roller, so I'm running a cheap Amazon special 3300 kV brushless system. To sell, this truck runs perfect. Now on this one I picked up as a slider, threw some short course truck tires on it and a Stampede body that I had kicking around, and this one is running a brush system. It's got just a standard 12-turn brushed motor and an Arma brushed ESC. Now, you can see both these trucks they're the same thing, but they're set up a little differently. Again, this one has the RPM arms. This one is all stock. I basically just threw together what I had kicking around. Stock front shocks. It's got these aluminum rear shocks. RPM camber links in the back. And these wonderful white nylon hub carriers in the rear off of one of my vintage sledgehammers. They're just kicking around. It's good enough for the kids to thrash around at the skate park. We were there last weekend, and my son threw it off a jump, and it snapped the mount post for the ESC there, and it snapped one of the hub carriers. I swapped that out already. Now I just got to figure out how I can mount this in here. But so I really don't have any issues with these two-wheel drive Rustler chassis. They're pretty modular. Just like with any of the two-wheel drive Traxxas trucks, the whole transmission and the rear end can come off and be swapped onto the Stampede, the Slash, the Bandit. Same thing with the front from the bulkhead and everything attached to it can all just be swapped around between chassis. So if I wanted to, I can make this a Stampede by getting a Stampede chassis and the bracing for underneath, and boom, two-wheel drive Stampede. If I wanted to turn theirs into a Bandit, I just have to get some buggy tires and a buggy body, and yeah, it's a Bandit. If I want to turn it into a Slash, get a Slash chassis and the bracing for underneath, and boom, front and rear off, and boom, I got a two-wheel drive Slash. Now, the biggest issue with these trucks has always been mounting the ESC. Now, as you can see on this brushed one here, where the stock XL5 ESC or even the VXL 3S ESCs will screw in, most other brand ESCs don't have those little screw holes, so you gotta get creative. Now, I had this one held in here with double-sided sticky tape, and that tape failed going off of a jump at the skate park. So right now I've just got it held in place with a rubber band. It's obviously not going to hold when I continuously launch this off of ramps. So I gotta find a better way to mount this. Either print up a cage setup that'll hold it and screw into the standard mount points underneath. Figure out a way to screw a cage on here and, you know, maybe use a zip tie up top, have the cage come up, and, you know, put a zip tie over the top so that way it, you know, just holds it in place without impeding the fan too much or something. I don't know. But that's going to be something I will figure out eventually. Now, one other thing I will say is the ground clearance. It's a two-wheel drive Rustler. It's a stadium truck. It's not supposed to have an extreme amount of ground clearance, but I mean, if you're looking here, it's a little off camber right now because it's sitting on my laptop, but there's not a whole lot of ground clearance there. Maybe about 2 inches. And on mine, it's a little bit less because of the way I've got it set up. Now, these trucks can go just about anywhere. And mine, even though it's got a little bit less ground clearance in the front, with these Stampede tires, if I were to get, you know, a full matching set of Stampede tires to put on the front and rear of this, the ground clearance would be a little bit better. It'd lose some of the agility that the stadium truck has, but the ground clearance would be a little bit better. With these short course truck tires, it works just fine for thrashing about dirt in the skate park, so, you know, leaving the kids set up the way it is, it'll be just fine. Another issue I have, it's not really an issue, it's just kind of a nitpick for me because I find it annoying that I have to do this. But whenever I have to do anything with the steering, replacing the servo, you have to remove 4 screws, which isn't bad because then that just comes up. But then all your linkage is all connected underneath here, and it's all connected to this top plate, not connected to the chassis. I would have preferred that all the linkage and everything was bolted to the chassis and not this top plate, and this top plate just came in with a set of pins or something and just kind of held everything in place. But they decided, Traxxas in their infinite wisdom decided to make everything bolt up to this top plate here. Which, I mean, whatever. It works, but it's just kind of annoying, I think. Again, not a terrible system. It works, it's functional. It does the job it needs to do. Now, these chassis are great. Parts are everywhere for them. You can find RPM for, all 4 corners, RPM body mounts, the shock towers front and rear. You can even find RPM cages for certain ESCs. I think an RPM cage this would fit in, but I'm not 100% positive. I haven't bought one. Again, like I said, I'm probably just going to print myself one because, I've got 3D printers. I might as well make my own shit. Again, I didn't have a bumper, printed a TPU bumper for the kids' truck. But very easy to work on. Pretty simplistic. I mean, there's not a whole lot to these trucks to really mess up if you gotta tear it apart. The biggest thing is the transmission, where a lot of the older ones, like this one has the gray case. This one's probably from a truck, probably from the early 2000 to 2010, I think. Something like that, before they discontinued them. Whereas this black transmission is off of one of the original electric ones. These had a slipper clutch on a hex. The pin that the spur gear sits on is a hex instead of the pin system that the newer ones have. The shaft that the spur sits on has a pin that goes through it that you put the housing. There's a little housing that you bolt the clutch plates to, or no, they bolt the spur to it. The clutch plates sit behind it, and it's this is essentially the slipper system just goes in instead of the hex sits on that pin. I mean, either way, they're both decent systems. They both work. It's just very hard to find harder to find parts for these, although, you know, a lot of the Nitro two-wheel drive gears, even though they're 32 pitch, they'll fit in this no problem, and they have the same setup for the hex. So this one is running a Nitro 32 pitch gear. So, I mean, it's not the fastest thing in the world, but again, it's brushed and it's for my kids to just thrash around with. So, you know, I'm not. This was just thrown together with spare parts, and you know, even though it's got the RPM camber links, I was gonna put those on mine, but then again, mine are adjustable. Might as well just throw those on the kids' truck. Now, power-wise, I wouldn't go anything more than 2-cell. Honestly, I know a lot of people like to run 3-cell in these two-wheel drive trucks. I had a two-wheel drive Slash that I ran 3-cell in with the VXL system, and it just destroyed everything every time I took it out. So 2-cell on the brushless systems with these is perfect, and they handle it no problem. Again, more of that white nylon. Tells me that, you know, these parts came off of an earlier model truck. White nylon on the diff cup, the output cups here. You know, older truck. Again, more white nylon in there. You know, when it breaks, I've got plenty of spares, and spares are also extremely readily available for these. You got companies like RPM. You still got a lot of other companies. You can find them, you know, especially on Amazon. They got all the different Chinese companies that are all owned by the same people, but they make, you know, sell them under different brands. Make all sorts of aluminum and plastic parts for these. So the two-wheel drive Traxxas trucks, you can still find parts everywhere. As for a rating, I'm gonna have to give the electric two-wheel drive Rustler a 7 out of 10. Again, they're very easy to work on. The parts are all over the place. Again, it's just my personal nitpicks with the steering all being attached to this upper plate instead of the chassis. That's just more of a me annoying nitpick thing. And, you know, for mounting the ESC, there's no, like, you know, a lot of the other trucks, they'll have a spot for the ESC, just set it in there, and then you can, you know, throw a zip tie around it, or, you know, double-sided sticky tape, and it'll sit in there, and it's held in, you know, rather decent. Whereas this is just a flat plate, and yeah, double-sided sticky tape will work for a certain amount of time, but like this one, you can see it had double-sided tape on it already, and even then I screwed this ESC to it, and it still snapped it. Overall, if you can find one of these trucks, they've been discontinued forever, but they sold so many of them. They're out there and you can pick them up relatively cheap. If you can pick one up, I would, because it's a great truck to just have to bash about. Again, like I said, I've had about a dozen of these things over the years, and yeah, I eventually ended up trading a lot of them off just because I wanted something a little bit faster, or a little bit, you know, a little bit cooler looking. Now, I ended up trading my first Rustler for the two-wheel drive Slash I had, and then, you know, I got bored of that and ended up getting rid of that for the Baja Ray, and it was just spiraled from there. But it's nice to have one of these back in the collection again for myself, and, you know, I got the one for the kids. You know, having these trucks around, they're perfect trucks, especially for beginners. You know, eventually, when they grow out of them, you know, I'll probably end up either trading them off or selling them, or, you know, who knows, just maybe building them and letting the kids just launch them to the moon. We'll see. We'll see how that goes, but great truck for the price. Price is usually right. You can find these for anywhere around $100, if not, you know, maybe $150 for a good, you know, one, say in this kind of condition where it's got some goodies on it and it's got a brushless system. You can find these for like $100 to $150, sometimes a little bit more, depending on, you know, mine's not clean, it's dirty, but I run it. You know, this one, you know, you find them in this condition with a brush system for like $100 or less, or you can find them as sliders and rollers for even cheaper. No electronics, you know, no nothing, just the ready-to-run chassis. Drop in your shit and go. And back on the shelf with you. Your spot right next to the Reflex DB10. Well, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Two-wheel drive Traxxas Rustler. Great truck, 7 out of 10 rating. If you can find one for cheap and decent shape, I would pick one up, definitely, because, again, they're just fun, easy to work on. Good for kids to learn on. You know, if you want to build it to be a speed truck, you can. Build it to be a drag car, go for it. It's pretty versatile. You can do quite a bit with it. So, if you like this kind of content, feel free to stick around, subscribe, hit the little notification bell, be notified about all my latest videos. Stay tuned for more. If you got any comments or questions, leave them down below, or hit me up on any of the social medias that will be tagged in the description below. Stay tuned for more. See y'all later.